field, if there's chatter on time slot 2, and I'm listening at Ohio State, and I only had Ohio State in there, I would not, if my mid criteria is channel 3, if I key it up, I'm going to get a beat. It's not going to let me transmit because that time slot's in use. And I won't hear anything unless I'm listening to that talk group that's on here. Again, this is a little confusing. I encourage you to get a code plug, back it up, and then start playing with it. Once you start doing this a little bit, it gets easier and easier, and then you'll be the next guy here giving it to another group. So, let's keep moving. Channel information gets more confusing. This is where we define what we want the channel to actually do. I'm going to give 2 examples. Oh, quick note. FM repeaters today for ham radio use is at 25 kilohertz spacing. Commercial is at 12.5. Digital is 12.5. So you need to pay attention if your radio's not working right. You might not have it set up right. When you click on channels, there was a plus sign. If you hit a plus sign, it shows you what's programmed there. And for channels in particular, this is where you're going to want to right click. And when you right click, you get the option to do add, and you can add a digital or an analog channel into the list of channels that's already there. If you put your mouse on an existing channel and click, left click, it will display the information that's in that channel. This is what scares a lot of people, the screen. What do you put in the screen to make the radio work? And you got to go through all that prior stuff to set everything up to put into the screen. You get to choose if the channel, actually, I'm going to back up. What I described before on selecting analog or digital is when you're programming a Motorola radio. On the TYT, when you right click, you get to choose if it's analog or digital up here. When you choose analog for ham radio use, you should set it to 25 kilohertz. TOT is usually set pretty low on these radios by default. TOT, anybody know what TOT is?
I know.
Yes, very good. You're getting some interaction going. Your power level. The channel name is just some alpha text. You can call it whatever you want that makes sense to you. So 652 means 146.52 simplex to me, so that's what I called it. You put your transmit receive frequency in there, and typically you don't have a receive tone on the radio, but you do have a transmit tone, so you want to put that tone on there if the repeater requires a PL. This is all the information you need to put in to program an analog channel on a DMR radio. Getting a little more complex is programming a DMR digital channel into the radio. On the drop down, you would right click, just call it, you would right click on it, add, and then the screen would show up unpopulated. Select digital mode, 12.5 kilohertz. I've got a scan list. I'm not going to go into scan list. You can start experimenting that once you get the radio set up. It'll start making more sense again. For the sake of time, I tried to keep some of this extra stuff out. So watch as normal. Actually, this is all default. Timeout timer, hot power. Give it the alpha name, which is the channel name up top. Your receive frequency, transmit frequency. This is the receive frequency and the transmit frequency of the radio, not the repeater, but it's just opposite the repeater. And you have your admit criteria. I mentioned this. If you're on a repeater, a digital repeater, typically you set this to color code free. On the right-hand side, there's a few extra things you have to put in. The contact name. The contact name is that digital talk group. And you get a drop down. So the contact name is what talk group the radio is going to transmit on. The radio can only transmit on one talk group at a time. The radio can listen to multiple talk groups at a time. I programmed in a talk group called Ohio State. It was in the previous slide. The only thing in Ohio State was 3139, which is the Ohio State talk group. So when I have the radio on this channel, and channels are actually defined in zones, and I'll get to that, the only thing I'm going to hear is Ohio State, which means if someone's talking on local 2, local 9, Parrot, 310, all these other ones, my radio is not going to hear it. Which is why you might want to consider everything that I have on this slide is the same, except I've got my TS2-LC Ohio. I created a group list that lets me listen to things I want to hear, which are 2, 9, local repeater, the metro area, and Ohio State. And this one does not include Midwest. I've got another one where I can be listening to everything that is possible to be on there. So if the repeater hears it, the radio will hear it. If the repeater's in use, and I don't hear it, and key up the radio, and my admit criteria is set right, I'll get a beep on the radio saying, I'm not communicating with the repeater. And if you set your admit criteria to always, and you keep the radio, you're going to get a beep, and it's going to sound like the radio is operating normally. There's 2 different types of beeps. One is a loud, annoying buzzing sound. That means you're not communicating. The typical beep, that's just a beep, means you're communicating. Or your admit criteria is to always, and the repeater may be tied up, and nobody will talk to you. They won't hear you. Got it? And if not, again, you just need to start playing with it. I'm trying to make this as exciting as possible. It's a lot of detail. Let's keep going. What I mentioned before, that TS2 local Ohio, this is from slides before when I set this up. I've got that alpha text up there, and this is the receive group that I selected, so I'm hearing multiple things and things I'm interested in. Creating zones. Believe it or not, we are getting to the easy part. Typically, I mentioned radios have lots of zones, but because of the switch on top, they're limited to 16 channels. So you need to pick and choose what you want, what makes sense for you to put in what zones. Radios that are good radios that have optical encoders on top without 16 channels, you can have 250 channels in a zone, not these up-down buttons or trackballs. You create a zone, you right-click on it, where it says zone, you get an ad, and when you get the ad, you'll get the box you see here. And I've got a zone called VHF analog. And I've created a whole lot of channels in the previous slide, or on my radio in the slide. And I've got 16 channels I can put in a zone. So I like to hang out on simplex. I've got a couple simplex channels. And I've got alpha names that make sense for me. Miamisburg Wireless Association, Dayton 694-543-511 for the Xenia. And the nice thing about these radios is you've got these alpha tags, so you know where you're at. You create the alpha tags that make sense to you versus something really generic that someone's just putting out for everyone. So these are, when I click on my radio and go to this zone, I'm not going to show you how to do that. I think most of you that have a DMR radio know how to change zones right now. If not, there's lots of people that can help you. And my DMR, I've got a zone called DMR SCT. This is where I put the popular stuff that I use when I'm on DMR. Again, I have lots of zones. DMR let's back up. DMR SCT is just specific to one of my repeaters. And these are everything that's available on this repeater. DMR mix, DMR mix is where I've got the different repeaters all mixed together that are mostly DMR, and I may even put a few analog channels. Again, don't get hung up if you're not getting this. Just start playing with it and refer to the slide deck with the definitions and how it all gets put together, and you should be able to get through it. If not, call Don. So once you have all that done, and I've done pretty well time-wise, you only have 2 things left to do. And I mentioned this before. Before you program the radio, once you have your zones created, you're essentially done. Go to File, Save As, give it a name. Not the same name of the program you just loaded onto your computer, because you all have overwritten your backup. Do File, Save As, give it a new name, a version number. And if you want to keep multiple versions, if you're changing this and you move back to a prior version, I highly recommend that. That's what I do. Save the configuration. After you save the configuration, We had the yellow button, that was your download button. The red button is the upload button. If your radio is successfully communicating over that USB cable that you got with the radio and the computer, that code plug, which is just a fancy name of radio configuration information, will be uploaded to the radio, and you will have a functioning DMR radio.
Maybe.
Well, again, if everything's going the way it's supposed to be going, you will have a functioning DMR. There's a lot of challenges. There's even challenges with some of the Motorola stuff having to, they've just been at it